we had been trying and didn't happen. And I thought, oh gosh, I started this new job. We need to put pause on that, which I really couldn't afford to do at my age. Lo and behold, I was pregnant, and my boss at the time, a female, her first reaction wasn't, oh, congratulations. It was, uh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And
Oh,
then
crap.
yeah, oh crap. And then 2 minutes later, oh, congratulations. It was like the afterthought.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan and Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Defense Never Rests. I'm your host, Megan Henry, and tonight we have on some reoccurring guests. We have on Carly, Jamie, and Helen, who I had on a few weeks ago to talk about gender bias. And we decided to have another episode that we're talking about, being working mothers in busy careers, and not only how to balance that, but also how, to get more mindfulness in our days and, make it all work to the best of our abilities. So, I love these women. They're awesome to talk to. So with that, let me bring them in. Hi, ladies. Good evening. Welcome again for joining me tonight on the Defense of Us. I'm so happy to have you all back on.
Yay.
Yeah,
I've been looking forward to it since part one. So, this is going to be a good one.
Well, yeah. And we've improved, I think, our circumstances a little bit. We all decided we were going to bring a beverage this time and have, an adult chat about a lot of things. I mean, last time we had talked about gender bias and diversity in the workplace. And we were, during that conversation, I feel like we came up with so many other topics. So tonight, our focus is really going to be on another type of bias that, moms tend to have in the workplace, but also I want to touch on how we can try to strike a balance and be sane while we're, trying to juggle so many things that we all juggle every day. So, I kind of want to dive right into our own personal experiences, because I think everyone has like a widely different experience when they, really dive into motherhood and juggling a career at the same time. So I'm going to start with you, Jamie. I think you might have the youngest child out of the group. I'm not sure.
Just turned 4. So yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I think you might. So, you have a 4-year-old, and if I remember correctly, you had her while you work at a firm, you still work at a firm. So how was that experience for you, being like an established full-time working attorney and having your first kid?
Well, it was I would say a strange set of experiences for me, because I dealt with infertility for years leading up to that, and then I made the switch the start of that year to go from the public sector into the private sector, and thought, well, I haven't gotten pregnant by this point in time. I don't have to worry about it for a while. And 3 months later, it was like, wait, I'm what? Was the reaction. So I was definitely dealing with this situation of being new to the firm, new to the state, new to the area, and new to parenthood all at the same time, trying to figure out kind of how to navigate that world to ensure that, yes, I obviously went back to work because I'm still there and still very happily, gainfully employed there, but was not expecting to deal with, trying to, I think there was almost a sense of prove myself, if you will, as a good investment, as someone who was newly brought on board and surprised need to take some time to go into parenthood. And so I think I probably did things that I look back and say that I'm not quite sure if I would have handled it the same way as I did. I waited a really long time to tell anyone that I was pregnant. And I think that part of that was just that sense of insecurity. Maybe it was a false sense. I don't know. But I would hope that the work environment that I'm in now, and I hope this for other, first time parents as well, that they feel comfortable enough to make the decision to share their good news with their colleagues as early as they want to, or as late as they want to. I think it's just that having a good trusting environment with your colleagues and partners and the attorneys that you work for, to know that they're happy for you and going to be supportive of you throughout that whole process.
I mean, that your story can really resonates with me, because I think I was in a very similar boat. I was at a new firm for me. And I don't know, I waited obscenely long, to the point that my husband's like, you kind of need to tell them, like they're gonna ask questions, but being really nervous about, the ripple effect that would have on my place there. And I believe we touched on this during the last podcast, like the assumption, well, are you going to come back to work? Or is this, and, I think, Helen, you had that exact experience, right?
I think I'm the only in-house lawyer on today. But it makes me kind of sad that to hear, that you had the same experience, because I too had just started a new job, and I had dealt with infertility issues, and I'm an older mom. I'm, what do they call that now?
Like octogenarian mom or something.
Not that old.
Conversation with
yeah,
on LinkedIn about this yesterday.
Geriatric. That's it.
Yeah. So I wasn't, and when I started the new job, we had been trying and didn't happen. And I thought, oh gosh, I started this new job. There's, we need to put pause on that, which I really couldn't afford to do at my age. And then, lo and behold, I was pregnant, and it was, like everybody said, congratulations. My boss at the time, a female, her first reaction wasn't, oh, congratulations. It was, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then oh crap. And then 2 minutes later, oh, congratulations. It was like the afterthought. So, it makes me sad that we had to like wait to tell. I mean, I waited the full first trimester to say anything because I've had issues before, but it's sad that we have to kind of put that into consideration in revealing that. So
yeah,
I think I was almost 5 months pregnant before I said anything at work.
Oh,
I waited
wow.
a really long, like
I was too.
it was a really cold winter. I took full advantage of ponchos and all sorts of those things. And in the spring, I was like, A-line dresses. I don't know what these are, but let's start wearing them. Yeah, I waited a long time.
So Carly, how about you?
So I think that I think it's just really important when you're planning planning to have a family or you're pregnant, is to come up with some sort of plan to the extent that you can. And by plan, I mean, so I was a full-time litigation attorney. You are on many court dockets and court deadlines. And then when you have a child, they're very demanding as well. So I knew that in my mind, something had to give a little bit. I didn't feel like I could keep up with both. And it's not to say that you have to give up one or the other, but I came up with a plan, something that would work best for me. And it's not going to be for everybody, but I was able to work remotely. So I've been working from my home office for 10 years now, way before COVID. And it's something that really allowed me to balance both. And I don't think that without it, I don't think that I would have been able to do both, at least to the extent that I was able to. And again, I know it's not for everybody. Some people need to be in that work environment, but for me, it allowed me pockets of time to do the extra things that I needed to do. Right. So instead of taking a break from my work and walking down the hall at the office to chit chat, which by the way is very necessary to your day, I could do some laundry or I could do the dishes. So it just, like I said, it allowed me a pocket of time to be able to do more. So planning to the extent that you're able to, I think is really important. And also expressing, if you work for a big firm, expressing your needs and staying firm with that. These are my needs. This is what I'm going to need to be able to do in order to balance this, I think is really important.
Yeah. And I admire that you were able to plan that out up front and like understand and map out your own needs. I think I was in like a panic stage, being like, oh shit. Like, how am I going to do all this without anyone realizing that I'm like
Right.
juggling it? And at the time, at least for me at the time, working from home wasn't an option. So I did it secretly. You know, I would have a deposition. I just wouldn't come back to the office. Or if I had a deposition outside the office, I just would never go in that day. And I just didn't ask. And I think I just started working from home on Fridays and just didn't tell anybody. And no one asked any questions. So I just kept doing it. But that worked for me in the place I was at that time.
Right.
But I was very thankful when I moved to where I am now that, you know, work at home, work in the office, work in the park, work wherever you want, just do what you need to do to get your stuff done. That worked much better. But at the time that I had to use a different system. So that's great that you were able to like recognize it and like propose it early on.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that it's becoming more available to people who need it because of the pandemic. You know, firms see that it's, accessible and they can make it work. And, hopefully it works out for more people.
Now, I'm going to circle back with Jamie on this one too. Like how was your firm, or how was your experience at your firm with, your maternity leave and your time off? Because I know this was an issue with me. My firm that I was at was like, we don't have one of those policies. Like it was like a new thing to them. So I'm curious what your experience was.
Yeah, that was the interesting part for me. So when I was interviewing with the firm, thinking that I was not going to need it anytime soon, I was recruited. So at the time I felt a little bit of flexibility or confidence, I guess it will, asking about things I don't think I otherwise would have. One of them being maternity leave policies. So I got a commitment from them of 6 weeks leave that would be paid at the time, and lo and behold, I needed it, and I was able to tack on the rest of my kind of vacation time for the year that I hadn't used up until that point. So I think I had something like 8 weeks off. The thing that I think I don't want to say most proud of, but one of the things I'm really proud of at the firm after that experience, obviously, is, I became really passionate about advocating for longer parental leave, particularly among firms, and emphasis on the parental part of the parental leave, not just maternity. So an opportunity came up. One of the partners let me know that the firm was going to be reevaluating its leave policies, and what did I get? And so I told them, and I took it as a chance to advocate for what I thought would be better. So the firm now has a 12-week parental leave policy, fully paid, and you can take that birth or adoption or surrogacy anytime in the first year. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be consecutive. It doesn't have to be right away. It can be anytime in the first year. So I was really pleased that they made that, and there was no gripes about it. They really moved to that policy. It was great.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's amazing.
I had a similar as your policy was like 6 weeks. And then you just have a lot of stress at that point because you're like, oh, now I have it just the financial aspect, because you're like, okay, I know how to live, without kids, but now you need to start planning ahead. Like, okay, well then I'm not going to work. And if I'm not going to get paid for this amount of time, and then I need to pay for daycare, but you want to maximize the time that you're home. Mm-hmm. And it just was a lot of stress. I just remember being very stressed about the whole thing.
Also,
and I didn't appreciate 6 weeks at the time. So like my past job in the public sector, it was 10 days. That was the leave policy when you pregnancy or adoption, but you got 10 days. And so I said 10 days to 6 weeks. This is great. Until I became a mom and realized 6 weeks, like this is not even remotely close to being enough.
I think people forget that not a lot of daycares will even accept your infant at 6 weeks. I mean, I think that most of them are 8 weeks or 10 weeks. So, I mean, what are you supposed to do with this little baby who can't sit up or eat or
sleep through the night,
do anything?
And that was before the pandemic, when daycares were still slightly more abundant in number. I don't know about the states that you're in, but in Maine, our local Maine Public Radio did a whole series about the daycare crisis in the state in 2019. So before the pandemic even hit, and the daycares so many of them have closed since then, just because they can't keep up with the cost of doing business now. It's really, I think, if we're talking about anything, just this like the childcare crisis among professionals and making sure you have access to available, affordable, flexible enough childcare.
Well, that's going to be episode 3 because it's like a whole nother conversation for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about on that.
So Helen, how about you? Because I imagine corporate America is at least in my eyes, I feel like they have more friendlier leave policies, but correct me, I might be totally wrong, but that's just my perception.
Yeah, I had 6 weeks too.
So no, they're not.
Yeah. This made me think back to my experience and just having started a new job and then, just 2-3 months later, finding out that I'm pregnant and then having to wait to announce that. And then being out, all of that, I wonder how it affected my career at that place. It ended up not being a good cultural fit for me, but I do wonder if I'd had the time to establish myself a little bit more, a little bit better, a longer time, and not having all the pregnancy issues. And I had a difficult pregnancy. For a time, I thought they might put me on bed rest for 6 weeks. It was terrible. And then he came early, 4 weeks early. So it just was, everything in the book that you can imagine. But then I think about how it may have affected my career. And, I have no evidence on that. But I do think back and think, well, maybe things would have been different. Maybe if I had a year at least to kind of establish myself and them to understand my work ethic and not tainted by like being groggy and tired and hormonal and all those things. So maybe it would have been different. I don't know. But that's certainly something that women have to deal with that men don't. Right? I mean, just dealing with pregnancy symptoms in the workplace. So.
Right. Yeah. And even, if you're nursing and having to, juggle that as well. Like I remember personally going back and thinking like, oh, I have big windows. I have no lock on my door. Like who's going to barge in, while I have things hanging out. Like it's just like it was not ideal. So Carly, I think you probably have a very interesting perspective on this too, because being an employment attorney and a mom, you must have feel like you must have to counsel some of your clients too on their policies and what they have in place for leave and what they have in place when moms come back to work and things like that.
Right. Well, there's no federal paid leave. There's the FMLA yet. Right. Yet we're in the process of discussions. But under the FMLA, if the employer has 50 or more employees, they are required to provide up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Some states have paid leave statutes. Florida does not. So Florida, you really get to do, whatever you want to do as far as paid leave is concerned. But it's definitely a problem. It's an issue. This is part of the problem with female attorneys and, leaving the workforce. Like I think that we probably touched on in the last episode. It's a problem. Something needs to be done about it. We're having these kids. We're not doing it on our own. We need some support here. And like I mentioned, I mean, what you can't send them to daycare. I mean, there needs to be some sort of solution for sure. We're getting there. We're making baby steps, but we're definitely not there yet. But I think the lines of communication have definitely been open. I think that we are making some sort of progress in the right direction. So hopefully we'll get there soon. But as far as counseling my clients, I mean, they're mostly concerned with whether or not they're complying with the laws or not. And like I said, it's if they're under 50, they're fine. And there's no requirement for paid leave in Florida. So.
But Florida does have a parental continuance rule that got adopted last year where you can, if you are expecting a child, You can continue all of your court dates and hearings and motion sessions and depositions and stuff. I think it's 12 weeks is Florida's rule now.
Oh, for attorneys?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think that that got adopted last year. And
I didn't know
there's
that.
kind of a growing list of states that have adopted official parental continuance rules. Yeah.
Because there were so many attorneys who had to come to court almost in labor, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Wow.
It's interesting because I mentioned to all you today that I recently did a similar podcast with another attorney who was took the bar, and I think she had like a 3-week-old at home, and we talked a lot about like what they put in place for her, because she was nursing too, and it was like she's like I forget how much time she got, but it was a very little amount of time that she could use throughout the entire bar exam, that she's like, okay, I had to put in this, I had to go to the bathroom, I had to pump, then I had this inspected, and then I would go back, and I was like, oh, like how do you
to have her like items inspected to make sure she wasn't bringing any notes?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to this podcast episode actually, because Mothers Esquire is pushing with the ABA for the Pump Up the Bar campaign on trying to change that nationally.
I'll let you know when it hasn't come out yet.
Yes.
Probably this is a preview of what's to come. But I'll let you know. But I mean, when she was explaining that to me, I just went back to, taking the bar exam and being in that stressful mindset on its own. Now she has a newborn at home, so she's not even able to like sleep. And then to be during the test, then she had to pump for her baby and for herself, and then so you have to break your concentration and then take all this time to I just can't. And I think she had like extra time and things, but it's still very distracting for the process.
I mean, good for her. This might be an unpopular opinion, but wouldn't you just reschedule the test for another time? I mean, wouldn't you just say like, this is just really bad timing? Like, I don't know. Good for her that she did it.
Yeah.
I might reschedule.
But I mean, I think that goes back to something we were talking about before, just, having the flexibility of choice for you. I think things like accommodations at the bar exam and law schools that's necessary for entry into the profession, right? Because we have to get licensed in order to be attorneys. So I think those types of accommodations need to be available, but we also need to feel like we have the support to make whatever choice is right for us and for our families.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's the most important part.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I'm just going to throw this out to all of you. So like, what was your experience like then, being a new parent, and now going back to work and now suddenly having to juggle your busy career with, everything else that is going on at home, and how busy, that aspect is. And it's all new too. I mean, I know I struggled with it, and it was just like, I still struggle with it. Like every day, it's hard to do all this. So, what was your experience?
So for me, it was not a good experience. And I ultimately ended up leaving that job just because of the stresses I experienced when I returned. And I was trying to, compensate by putting in more hours and FaceTime, and like working from home was not a thing. So I would go in early, stay late, and my child was 3 months old, and I would get home and he would already be asleep at 7:30, 8 o'clock. And, you get 1-2 hours with the newborn like that. And so I ended up exiting that position because I thought, it was so hard to have this miracle baby for us. And this is probably our one and only. I'm going to miss all this time. So when I made that decision, I said, I'm going to take some time off and maybe just even do a part-time or contract work for a while, and then see how it goes after that. But I ended up finding it was a contract position, but it did turn into a permanent position that was so flexible. My GC was, so accommodating, and the stresses were very different. It was a job that when I left F5, for that whole first year, second year that I worked there, I don't think I ever checked my phone after I left the office. I mean, it was one of those things where I got my stuff done. Nothing I was doing was gonna be on fire that night. It can wait till the next day. And that really helped my personal situation. I don't know that everybody gets that lucky. But if it's not the right situation for your life, that it doesn't fit, then make something different.
Yeah.
That was what I had to do.
I mean, and I think that's also just a very brave decision to make, being like, okay, you know what, this just isn't working. And you need to put kind of your family first at some point and be like, I need to find something that works the best. And like, look how well it worked out for you too, even though it was probably scary at first,
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's leave this stable income and just find something that's a better fit.
It was very scary. But the trade-off was worth it. Not just the time with my newborn, but releasing the daily stress, like every night going to bed with a pit in my stomach because, it just wasn't going to be enough to catch up, that kind of thing. So releasing that was the best thing.
And it probably made you just a better mom too, when you're not that stressed. I mean, I notice even now, like, if I am stressed about work, it's so hard not to have that carry over. As much as you have that little person in the back of your head saying you need to leave it here, I struggle with that. If I get an email like later and it's really family time and I get distracted, and sometimes like that frustration you carry over. It's really difficult.
Right. And your kids can tell too.
Yeah.
And then you snap at them and because you're stressed, and then you feel guilty. So now you feel even worse.
Yeah.
I know.
What, mom guilt? Really?
And it's the worst too.
Jamie doesn't have that.
And I don't know if you all agree, but it's the worst, I think, when it happens like before that they leave for the day, because
because you can't apologize. They're gone.
Yeah. Like you don't have that calm bedtime part where you like can smooth everything over and like, but then they go to school and you're like, oh, do they not think I love them today? And then you worry about, and they probably don't care, but like I worry about it all day.
Mom guilt.
It's so
mom guilt. It's terrible.
So real. The one I'm a person that like working on my boundaries is something that I am working on, really working on it. But the one that I've been able to stick with mostly, and that I put in place when I first went back to work is from the moment my daughter wakes up in the morning, or the time that I wake her up until 9, whatever, that's my workday start time. I don't work. So between 7:30 and 9, I'm not accessible. And between 5 and whenever I put her to bed at just about 8 o'clock, I'm not accessible. And I carved those out. I even put them on my calendar. Yeah. It's like, I am not available during these hours. I'll work before, I'll work after. I always work before. I pretty much always work after. Let's be real. But it made such a difference for me knowing that to your point, Helen, we get such little time with them while they're awake during the workday. And I don't have a long commute. Even when I go into the office, I think the pandemic, I don't miss even the short one, has made it possible for me to have like 4 hours a day with her instead of 2 or 3. It makes a difference in my day, being able to just have that time, forget whatever else I need to do with it. Just have that time and being able to enforce that, know that I can enforce it and that it's going to be a respected boundary. I think that's always the question, but it was important to me to stick with it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with us during that. We're imposing on your window right now.
You are. So, I'm breaking my own rule.
But she has a drink. She has a drink, so that's okay.
And if your daughter comes on the podcast, that's okay too. Mine just walked in the door just now and didn't come in. So
can we talk about that enforcing the boundaries topic? I think that's pretty important because of, like the mom guilt and then enforcing the boundaries, because it's so easy to get sucked in, and the mission creep of once you say it's okay to call me while I'm on vacation, then it becomes okay. And then the next time it's easier and it's easier. I don't know, like how do you kind of enforce the boundary? And then I want to share something that I learned from an amazing lady. She's an executive here in Dallas Fort Worth area, and she was a keynote speaker on women, to women's leadership. And she, the one thing that I took away from that great speech was the words immovable. Was the not meeting? It'll come to me. I'm sorry. And she used that. It's an immovable. Okay, I'm sorry. Help me, guys.
Immovable obligation.
Obligation. Obligation is the word I was finding. And I think it becomes important as our kids get older because maybe that performance that my son has a performance tomorrow night, and if something were to happen where I had to be doing something for work, I want to be able to say I have an immovable obligation.
Sure.
But it's so hard. Like if you have a board meeting and you have to be at a, like you can really ask the board to move their meeting, but she did it and they accommodated that. So I think it's possible. It's just so hard for us to say, this is my boundary. I don't know if any of you have tips on enforcing that boundary.
Well, I knew for me that it was going to be hard to do it. So I very deliberately have a work phone and a personal phone. And I don't get my work emails on my personal phone. It was a choice that I made pre-parenthood. So now with the pandemic, like I leave my laptop in my office, I close my home office, I close the door and I take my work phone and I stick it in the middle of the kitchen island. So like it's not physically near me during those times that I am not accessible. And it took that kind of extreme of a disengagement for me to stick with it. But and I do that on the weekends from 5:00 Friday till about 8:00 Sunday. My phone stays in the middle of the kitchen island. I might check an email during that time, but I typically don't respond to it during that period unless it's like very clearly a rare tax emergency. They happen, but most of the time it can wait until the morning.
Yeah. And I think that's the perspective the change of perspective I had. I think pre-kids, I thought everything was so important and needed to get done at that very second or very soon thereafter. And now I've realized that there are some things that are emergencies that might need attention. Sure, like maybe you get a new case and maybe there's an emergency filing, maybe there's something, but typically it can wait till the morning, typically. So I've tried to train myself to be like, can this wait? And usually the answer is yes. Or does it require just a quick response? I see your email. I acknowledge the email. I'll look at this first thing in the morning or something to that effect. Because, sometimes clients do want to know that you see it or you're not ignoring something that they think is an emergency. And you just have to acknowledge it. I see it. I acknowledge it. I'm going to handle it. But it definitely took, I think it 100% took me to be a parent to understand that not everything is an emergency.
Right. The client might think it's an emergency, but setting the boundaries are important. And a lot of times the clients have families and kids too, and so hopefully that they'll understand. I always think back to the problem, the main issue that we might have is that everything's done very quickly through emails. Everybody has access to their email on their cell phone. So, my father is an attorney, and when I was younger, I used to go into his law firm and everything was done by fax. So things were just a lot slower then. I mean, you couldn't send an email and get an immediate response. It had to be faxed. And then if he wasn't in the office that day, it had to wait until the next day when you come in and you see the fax laying on the fax machine, and so I kind of think of that sometimes, like, what if we were living in the late 80s, if this was a fax, would I need to respond to it right then and there? The answer is typically no. But also setting the times, Jamie. And it's almost like scheduling them on your calendar, just so you know that nothing's going to happen between those times. I mean, I refer to my calendar for everything. And if I see that I'm doing, I don't actually do this, but relaxing from 8 to 9, that's what you're doing and nothing else takes place. Right.
I actually challenge you to put that on like a calendar so everyone can see like Carly, like relaxation. Yeah. Netflix.
I'll circulate it so my husband can see.
This is my Hallmark movie time. Because we are approaching on Hallmark movie time season. So it has to be acknowledged.
I mean, I have to do that for my exercises. I work out every morning not every morning. What am I talking about? 3 days a week at 5:30, and I have to schedule it. I have to put it on the calendar, else it doesn't happen. So, anything that you need to do, stick it on the calendar.
Well, good for you for sticking to 5:30. I can't do that 5:30.
It's tough, but I go to bed very early too. So once you get in that habit, you're good.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Just do it 5 times and then, but also the flip side to that is I can't sleep in past 5:30 on a Saturday morning either, which kind of stinks. So
yeah. I'm definitely more of like a 7. Oh, go ahead.
I'll say I'm usually up at 5:30 with Carly and working, not working. Talk about that for a minute, but I finally, it took the painful lesson of my back going out before the pandemic and several times that year for me to remember, like, I have to actually exercise and take care of myself and stuff. So I do it while my, in that time, my golden time with my daughter, I exercise right with her, and half the time she's crawling all over me. I used to think like I couldn't do a good workout if I had kids and dogs, and you can't, but whatever, I do it now because I need to.
I do the same thing though, because a lot of times, like they'll be on their iPad, or sometimes I'll be like, oh, grab those little weights and do them with me. And like, I even though it's not like one-on-one, like I'm listening to you. I mean, like, I think it's still quality time, because also you're also demonstrating like this is
healthy
important.
habits.
Yeah. But it is hilarious to watch kids do push-ups because they have no idea how to do them. There's no core strength. They're just like, they go all down and
I'm the client. I mean, you guys are the law firm lawyers, and I'm the client, and I have those attorneys, my outside counsel, that say, oh, I'm in an RV, we're driving, but next stop I'll get that to you. And I'm like, no, I didn't know you were, in an RV on vacation. No. So if you, I mean, like you said, there are true emergencies, but it is rare and they can wait. I mean, I know as outside counsel, you want to be responsive, and that's something I look, every in-house lawyer looks for in their outside counsel, but we're reasonable too. Like if you say, hey, I'm going to be on vacation, and let us know. I'm not going to expect you to be sending me an email from your RV driving down the road.
We want to work with you more often. Thank you,
Yeah.
Helen.
Yeah.
But I have to say that has to come with a slight caveat though, Helen, because if you every time you call that attorney, they have something. I feel like that has to be a little bit of a red flag for you too. Like if you're like, every time I call Joe, he's on vacation, or I would think that's me. Like,
no, but I've never had that experience with any of my attorneys. Like it's usually like, oh, you're going on vacation? What? You never go on vacation. So I don't have that problem. I think most law firm lawyers are not like traipsing about on vacation. I know you have hours to bill, but that's never been an issue.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that stands out to me too, when we talk about boundaries, is I was recently at my kids' like field day at their school, and their school's like right down the street. So I was like, okay, I think it's wonderful that I could just pop over for field day. And while I was there, I noticed there's a bunch of other attorneys there, and there's so many of the fathers who, great, I'm glad that they're there, but they were on the phone
the
whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
doesn't count.
What's the point of like, and like, do you think you look more important that you're on the phone? Like, I actually feel sorry for you and your kid, because you're not even enjoying this experience of what is 45 minutes of your morning just to like watch your kid, compete in field day. Like, I don't know, it made me sad a little bit too, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that multitasking approach to that. Like, if you're going to be there, be there. And then you can deal with that phone call in 30 minutes when you're back home and at your desk.
I think people are just a little bit addicted to their phones. I mean, they always feel like they have to be scrolling and looking. I mean, even sitting on the couch watching TV, you can't do that and relax because you have to be watching TV and scrolling through your phone at the same time. And also this feeling that the feeling of urgency, like everything has to be done right away, immediately. I don't know when that happened, other than the fact that cell phones allow for it. So people just feel like it needs to be done.
Blackberries. Remember Blackberries?
Mhm.
But I'm with you,
keyboard.
Jamie.
Yeah.
I have two phones, and my work phone stays in my home office when I'm done, and I don't go back in here, when I'm done for the day. So maybe on Sunday I'll check it to see if there's like early morning meetings that popped up, for Monday. But it's like it's in a different room. I need to do it a better job of that with my personal phone. And so my husband and I try to put it like on the kitchen counter if we're sitting and watching TV, so we can have conversation and be present with each other. But it's so hard. It's really hard.
It was a downside for parenting for me. We did a baby monitor app. And so up until I was a parent, I would leave my phone down in the kitchen to like charge overnight. I had an actual alarm clock, and then we got the baby monitor app, which I thought, this was great. I don't have to spend, hundreds of dollars on a baby monitor. Yeah. Well, now my phone's in my room with me every night.
Yeah.
Technology.
So
to your point though, Helen, on that urgency question though, I think that's a large part of it. This like culture of urgency and culture of hustle that has developed in the legal industry, where it's almost like, frowned upon to take time, whether it's outside of normal business hours, weekends, actually taking vacation right before the start of the call. We're talking about, time off over the holidays and stuff. And, how many of I don't know about you, but how many of your colleagues are like actually taking all of their vacation benefits every year?
Right.
I think that is something that would help families a lot, and parents and professionals trying to, achieve our professional goals, because that's something that I think we all have, is success, whatever that means to us, and wanting to achieve it, but also feeling like we have the support to do that and be sane people, so like taking that vacation time, we get it, so take it, stuff like that.
I do feel like there's sometimes like a level of like guilt you almost feel for like taking that vacation. Like, I at least maybe it's me, sometimes when I'm taking vacation, I'm like, oh, but what am I gonna miss? Or what and really it's nothing. You're not going to miss anything. It's just a week, or it might not even be a whole week. It might be a few days. Like, I was on vacation last week for part of the week. I missed nothing. Like, there was no emergency, nothing burned down. Everything was fine while I was gone.
I don't feel guilty.
Good. I always
don't
feel
feel
a little guilty, but
I didn't in the public sector. I take it, but I did. It feels different in the private sector versus the public sector for me. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think attorneys, especially attorneys that bill their time, if they're taking time off, they're not billing, and then they don't feel productive. They don't feel like they're generating money for the firm as they should be. But I think it's important to change the perspective, because obviously time away, time to recharge, time to relax, be outdoors and do other things, you're going to end up being more productive in the long run, right? We are not robots and machines. We do need a break. And when you take that time to just be, take time to think, be creative, take time to rest, you come back ready to work harder than if you would have just dragged yourself through the entire time without a break, I find.
I agree.
Perfect
100%.
segue about nature, because I have a book recommendation.
I did not expect that.
Yeah. I was like, how can I segue this? Because I started a book
so happy to help.
talks about
it's your
just
book.
that. No, it's not my book. I started reading a book And I highly recommend it. I haven't completed it. It's written by a lady. It's called The Nature Fix. And it talks about not only being in nature making you just happier, but there's all these studies about it making you smarter and more
Yes.
creative. So I highly recommend that. I just think it's fascinating.
I saw a post on that somewhere on social media where it said you're supposed to spend a certain amount of days per month outside in a wide open area, like a forest. Like
In
it
the
got very
forest.
specific.
Yes,
Yes, in
it
the
talks
forest.
about the scents of cypress. And I've always liked diffusing scents, during sleep, for relax aromatherapy or whatever. I don't believe that essential oils cure everything, but I like how it smells. But this book talks about scientific studies related to the smell of cypress and it boosting NK cells that helps your immunity. So, just
Well,
you,
this
you
is
have to
perfect.
like be in nature.
Our office is closed tomorrow and I'm going hiking through a trail that has like a whole cypress
Yes.
grove in it. I'm just going to like go sit and bring my blanket
Yes.
and tell the family like, go hike. I need to, ingest my cypress vibes here.
Well,
Yeah,
Please
they
take
call
a picture and send it to
Yeah.
us, Jamie.
I will. Yes.
Well, in
also,
Japan, they call it forest bathing.
Yeah.
So,
well, I also think we need to give Jamie a round of applause that your office is closed. You're not working. You're a billing attorney and you're not working. You're going for a hike. I think that's awesome. And you don't,
yes.
because I know a lot of times on these national, like the federal holidays, you still, like, as a billing attorney, you still feel like, well, I mean, we're closed, but we're not closed, so good for you for, being closed. I think you
No
Yeah.
comment on my colleagues, but yes.
well,
No,
I'm
she
not
gets
talking about your
extra
colleagues.
points.
I'm talking about you.
She gets extra points for not only being closed, but she's going on the hike and she's going to be in nature too. So
Yes.
Yeah, you're gonna
Bonus.
you're gonna tackle Friday.
I haven't read the book, Helen, but it does. I love being outdoors. We're avid hikers and there's something about the fresh air. The thing that I love, I'm up here in Maine, and the thing that I really love about the parts of Maine we go to is, it's deep old forests right along the coast, right? And it's that combination of like evergreen and salty sea. I can't get enough of it. And it's my place to go and just let my brain recharge, because it does, like, you breathe deeper, your brain clears. It's time to just like not think. We hike in silence for hours. Like none of us want to talk to each other. We
Yes.
just want to like be in the woods.
your kids
Except
go
for
too?
my son.
Your kids do it?
Are we done yet?
Yeah.
We gotta drag him along.
We've brought our daughter hiking from like day one. We don't hunt, but we have two hunting dogs, and they'll go batshit crazy if you don't. So, that's what she's known.
Yeah.
But it makes
Yeah.
such a difference. Such a difference.
Yeah, I would say my girls are kind of like your son, Helen, that they're like, ugh, like, are we done walking? I'm like, but it's so nice and quiet. Like, smell the air, and they are like, like there's
They're like,
bugs.
can I have my iPad, please?
A branch like brushed up against my arm. Yeah, can I play Roblox?
Mine is he loves hiking, and because we've been dragging him hiking his whole life. And he's very excited about starting the hike, but any hike that's more than like an hour, it's like just, I'm dying here. Gotta drag him.
And I think I use the term hike in my family very loosely. It's more of like a walk on a path in the woods that doesn't really have any strenuous part to it. Like, you're just walking. It's clearly defined.
That's a hike.
I
That's
know.
a hike.
In the woods, it counts.
Yeah.
So Carly, other than fitting in your early AM workout, is that your daily mindfulness activity, or do you have other things that you use?
No, that's about it. And that really does it for me, because it's a very strenuous exercise, and I've got nothing left after that, but it's good, it's good for your body, but it's good for your mind too. I mean, I feel like I have a lot less, fight in me to argue with my kids. So it works out well.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as you. I try to fit in I try to work out for me, and then I try not to like check my phone or check my email because that's still always a problem.
Right.
And I try to put it to and always the instructor's telling me that I shouldn't be doing that helps too.
Yeah, but I like going to the beach too. We're in Florida and we're very, very close to the beach. I find that it's similar to, the big open space of the woods or the forest.
You
So
get the
that's my happy
negative
place.
ions from the ocean, and that makes you happy too. Yes.
Okay.
Any
I
like
didn't know that.
waterfalls, ocean, running water, you get negative ions.
I'm gonna have to read this book.
Good to know.
I know this book sounds like a big answer. So
well, that doesn't come from the book, but I read that somewhere else once, and you really do feel like you get kind of a rush if you stand next to a waterfall. I'm not a guru. I sound like a nature freak.
So one thing I wanted to touch on though, in our discussion, kind of talking about balance and mindfulness and things, is like outsourcing, because it's something that definitely comes up a lot. I feel like is, what is beneficial to outsource. I talk about it a lot with my friends, like, getting your house clean, to me, if you have the means to outsource it, that's 100% something that's worth your time. So what other things do you guys outsource that you would recommend that helps you kind of keep your lives in order?
I don't do this, but I have heard that the meal prep delivery, the food, delivery companies are amazing. Because, obviously it's less grocery shopping that you have to do. It is ready. You don't have to spend the time cooking. It's healthy, so you don't have to worry about that. So that's one. And also another one that I don't do, but I heard is amazing, is laundry service. Oh, I have a couple of friends that do that, and they swear by it. And apparently they pick it up, they clean it, and they deliver it folded. I mean, the only thing they don't do is place it in the drawer for you, but I guess at that point you could do that yourself.
I mean, the folding is the worst part.
Right.
Like, I have like probably 6 baskets upstairs that are just calling my name, and I ignore them.
We did a nanny share for years with my daughter. And the one thing I had the nanny do was wash and put away her laundry. And it's just one load a week, but man, it made a huge difference. And so she started preschool at the start of the year, and I don't have my nanny share anymore. So I'm like trying to keep, I'm tempted by this laundry service. Yes. She said to me a couple of weeks ago, Mama, you need to get better at doing the laundry. You need to learn how to do it. Yeah. It's really,
I'll get you a stool and I will teach you how to fold.
Let's learn this. But I second the house cleaning. It took me years to get around to that, because it was like a point of pride, right? Like, I know how to clean my house. I can keep it clean. I don't need someone else to do that. God, it's worth the money. Pay someone.
I went the other way on the house cleaning.
Really?
Yeah. So our nanny would clean the house. No, our nanny would clean the house, and then after he got older, we didn't have the nanny anymore. And then I would still have her come and clean periodically, but I had to clean before she came to clean, and I couldn't stop doing that, and it was like so stressful. So I was like, I'm gonna quit that. Which for the past year, I've been saying no, I'm gonna get her back, but I still haven't done it because I'm too embarrassed. I'm like, I have to get this cleaned before she comes, which doesn't make sense, but I know.
We have that argument in my house too. My husband does not. He's like, why do you have to clean for the cleaning people? I'm like, well, I mean, their job
then they'll see that you have a dirty house.
Well, they already know that, but like they can't clean it if they can't get to the dirt because there's other stuff blocking their way.
You don't want them picking up, right? You want them cleaning. Right.
Well, that's true. That's true. You have to organize it.
Yeah.
The tidy up before the cleanup.
So I started a new thing with my son that you might like. because I have one boy, he's 10. He has stuff all over the house. Every inch, if there's a flat space, that's his. Whatever it is, Legos, stickers, whatever. So we started this thing where I have a little basket. Every night I go around and I pick up all the stuff and stick it in the basket. And he has 24 hours to put it in its place, or that whole thing goes in the trash.
Ooh, I
That
love it.
freaked him out. Yeah.
I love it.
It's a chuck it bucket.
Yeah. And if it's not gone and emptied, it's out.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had to go so far as to actually throw my son's something, like I did something similar, and I had to, he didn't believe me that I was going to throw it out. So I had to actually like do it in front of him and show him that I was throwing everything. And I threw it in his trash can. Now it was a clean trash can and it was a clean bag and nothing else was in there. Like I could very easily like grab it out after the fact. But after that, never again, because he saw
you have to commit. You have to commit to
and
it.
follow through.
The follow through.
Yes. This is going to be a 2022 plan, I think.
It's
stealing that idea.
I highly recommend it.
We used to do this when they were younger, be like, if it's on the floor, it's out the door, but nothing ever went out the door. It was just a cute thing we would say, and the kids would like scream and run around like, like. But now that they're older, they're like, yeah, okay, sure. Nothing's going out the door. I need to do it with those boxes that are housing my daughter's zoo in the basement.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really good piece of advice, so that I'm taken for myself.
Chuck it bucket. I even like the name that you came up with. It's very catchy.
Chuck it bucket. I'm gonna use that one.
So we're just about out of time, but I would love to hear some advice that you might have for either new or seasoned mothers and attorneys and non-attorneys, I don't care, anyone working, any advice that you might have to like attain a better balance, because I know the work-life balance is not a thing. We all know it's not a thing, but we all want to be closer to that sanity of maybe feeling like we might achieve it. So any advice that you might want to share, I would love to hear it. And I'll start with you first, Carly.
My best piece of advice would be to speak up and ask for what you think that you need. And don't be afraid to do it. Don't fill your mind with, well, what if this, what if that, what will so-and-so think of me? Because at the end of the day, if you're stressed, your kids are going to be stressed and everybody is going to be miserable. So the best thing that you can do, if you can identify something that would be helpful to you and create that better balance, is to identify it and speak up and ask for it and not feel bad about it.
That's really good advice. Hard in execution, really good advice. But and you did it early on, when you spoke up for what you needed to make everything work for you when you first had
right. I mean, I think if you look at it this way, if you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family, it's just something that's got to be done.
How about you, Jamie?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as Carly, having the confidence to ask. It's interesting we're talking about this today. I shared on my LinkedIn post of the day about a video that I saw last week. And it had this question in there that really stuck with me, kind of to this point, where instead of trying to think about like how to manage it, being in an environment where you have the confidence to say what support you need, and that your employers are asking, what support can we give you? Or your colleagues are asking, what support can we give you to reach your goals? And I think it starts in some ways as having the confidence to advocate for yourself for, whether it is, working remotely as we all are now and staying in that way, or scheduling yourself for specific hours that you're not available, or even scheduling, if you're a nursing mom, schedule it right in your day that like your pumping times, those are not available to be, stuff like that. I think it's just I didn't have that confidence for myself when I was a new mom, and I am passionate about having the confidence for others now, because I find that it's contagious, right? If you see someone else having the confidence to do that, then it makes it easier to stand up and advocate for yourself that way.
That's such a great point. It's definitely something I struggle with too, with the idea of like telling somebody what I need. I'm like, well, you should just know. but I mean, it's not you can't assume that someone knows what you need. You have to, speak it. How about you?
And that could be time away, but that could be a mentor or someone else, asking for stuff like that.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a combination of both of those. And I would say, whether it's a work day or a weekend or in the evening, maybe it's not going to happen every day. I know it doesn't happen for me every single day, but try to have just 1 hour for just yourself. And if it's working out and just that hour, it's just about you, or watching a trashy TV show, what I tried to do before we worked remotely in COVID was I always blocked off my lunch hour, and I was mostly successful in not having meetings scheduled during the lunch hour. And I tried to get up from my desk and, go out or just not be eating at my desk. It's been different now that we've been working remotely. Like every hour of the workday is filled, whether it's lunchtime or whatever, because everybody's somewhere else and it doesn't matter. And so that's been harder. But if I do get that one sliver, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour in the middle of the day, I try to just leave and do something else. So I think that helps to kind of keep you sane, because we all will sit there and we haven't gotten up for 5 hours. You go from call to call to call to call, and you realize, oh my gosh, you blink and it's been 5 or 6 hours already. So if you get the chance, take it and don't feel guilty about it, because nobody's going to know and nobody's going to care. So just do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember when my kids were remote, what I tried to do, and it's not exactly the same, but they would have a break from their day, and I would say, during your break, we're going to go for a walk, and we would just go for a 30-minute, however long their break was, walk around the neighborhood. And I think it was just good for everyone. It was good for them to get away from their computers, and because all they wanted to do during their break is go on Roblox or something, just look at another screen. But good for me too, is I'm like, what? They probably aren't going to be thankfully, learning from home forever. But let's take advantage of this opportunity we have right now to do something else. And like, as you were saying, Helen, we're not in the middle of the woods, but at least we're getting fresh air, and it's, clearing your head a little bit and getting away from the electronics just for a little bit. So, well, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Jamie, Thanks for taking the time away from your blocked out time. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. I'm almost empty, guys. I have enough for a proper cheers.
Jamie needs a refill.
I also think I have that same exact glasses that you do, Jamie.
Yeah. I can't see without them. That's my
no, I mean your drinking glasses. I think the same. Yeah.
Like I thought you were talking about these, and I was just like, if I took them off, I'd be like this on the Zoom.
I think those are like Crate and Barrel. Yep. Crate and Barrel circled like 2009. Yep.
Oh wow. That was good.
Yep. Spot on.